Welcome to Hockey Whiz Talks podcast. In this podcast, I talk about potential sellers featuring the Anaheim Ducks. In this podcast, I talk about who the Anaheim Ducks should sell off during the trade deadline. Coming into this season, the Anaheim Ducks didn't have very high expectations of them because although they had some young talent on the team, they were not expected to piece it all together yet. Thus, they were expected to be sellers at the trade deadline and get some picks at the 2024 draft and beyond. As the trade deadline approaches, let's look at where the Anaheim Ducks are in the standings. The Anaheim Ducks are currently sitting in third last in the entire league. Only the San Jose Sharks and Chicago Blackhawks have worse records than the Anaheim Ducks. Anaheim has a 18-30-2 record, having only scored 129 goals, which is fourth worst in the NHL, and having yielded 170 goals against, which is 23rd worst in the NHL. The best thing the Anaheim Ducks could do is sell off their veteran players in hopes that they can be a better team next year and build through the draft. The three major trade chips for the Anaheim Ducks are Adam Henrique, Jacob Silfverberg, and Ilya Lyubushkin, who are all UFAs in 2024. But if you want to count other players that the Anaheim Ducks could be interested in trading, you can include Frank Vatrano, Brock McGinn, and even some of their younger defensemen such as Urho Vakanainen, Jacob Lacombe, Gustav Lindstrom, and even goaltender John Gibson, as Lucas Dostal has emerged as a suitable starter in the NHL. And now a word from our sponsor. Check out my scouting blog at hockeywiz777scouting.com. Listen to my scouting blog podcast on podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/hockeywiz777scouting. Starting with Adam Henrique, he would be a very solid player on a contending team as he can play both wing and center and has a lot of playoff experience going back to his days with New Jersey. The one thing that would be a holdup in a trade for Adam Henrique would be his salary, but I don't think Anaheim would have any issue retaining some of Henrique's salary if it meant getting a better return. At the trade deadline, you can expect a hefty return because some teams may be desperate to add pieces for the playoffs. A player such as Adam Henrique could fetch a heftier return than usual. Henrique is 34 years old, but is currently having a tremendous season and is one of the better Anaheim Ducks this year, having tallied 15 goals and 33 points in 49 games. Jacob Silfverberg is a trickier player because although Jacob Silfverberg has history of being a playoff performer and is a really good penalty killer with some veteran leadership and would be a solid addition to a playoff squad, he is not the same player he used to be and has declined rapidly in recent years. Anaheim would have to retain a significant portion of Silfverberg's contract in order for them to trade him. Silfverberg only has 5 goals and 13 points in 49 games. Silfverberg would be a fourth-line player at this point in his career on a contender. Ilya Lyubushkin is a solid defensive defenseman to have around on a playoff team. He isn't anything flashy, but is a player that contending teams will look for. His stats aren't anything flashy. He only has 4 points in 47 games, which isn't anything to brag about, but that isn't what his game is about. He will bring some physicality and toughness to a blue line, and he will block shots, which is much needed in the playoffs. Of all the players on the Anaheim Ducks, there is no player that is more attractive on the trade block than Frank Vatrano, who was the All-Star representative for Anaheim at the All-Star game. He does have one more year left on his deal after this season with a $3.65 million cap hit, but that is an excellent contract for a player who has 22 goals and 36 points in 50 games this year. Vatrano has proven to be a very versatile player who can play up on the second line and can play on the third line if needed. Playoff teams will need some depth, and Vatrano is a great depth player on a playoff team, as proven by his stints in Boston, Florida, and the Rangers. Frank Vatrano might actually be the Anaheim Ducks' most coveted trade chip. It would not surprise me if Anaheim got a lot in exchange for him. While I don't think Urho Vakanainen, Jackson Lacombe, or Gustav Lindstrom will get traded, if the price is right, Anaheim Ducks could be willing to part with them. But they may be less willing to deal them as you may not get that much in exchange for them. The last player that is rumored to be on the trade block is John Gibson. John Gibson has 3 more years left on his contract after this season with a $6.4 million cap hit. He also has a no trade clause on his contract, so he would have to approve a move to that team he gets traded to. The reason I bring up John Gibson is because a couple teams do need goalies, including Carolina, New Jersey, and several other teams. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that John Gibson could be targeted. Check out my hockey blog at hockeywiztalkshockey.blogspot.com. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at hockeywiz777. Adam Henrique is traded in a 3-team trade with the Tampa Bay Lightning and Minnesota Wild. The Anaheim Ducks get Frederick Gaudreau, a 2nd-round pick in 2025 from Tampa Bay, and a 3rd-round pick in 2026 from Minnesota. Tampa Bay gets Adam Henrique, while Minnesota gets Logan Brown, Brock McGinn, and a 3rd-round pick in 2025 from Anaheim. Jacob Silfverberg is traded to the Washington Capitals for a 4th-round pick in 2024 and a conditional 3rd-round pick in 2025 if Washington makes it to the 2nd round of the playoffs. Ilya Lyubushkin is traded to the Vancouver Canucks for a 3rd-round pick in 2024 and a conditional 2nd-round pick in 2026 if Vancouver makes it to the 2nd round of the playoffs. Frank Vatrano is traded to the New York Rangers for a 1st-round pick in 2024. John Gibson is traded to the Carolina Hurricanes for Ryan Suzuki, Vasily Ponomarov, Antti Ranta, and a 1st-round pick in 2024. This is the projected lineup for the Anaheim Ducks after the trade deadline. The first line is Leo Carlsson centering Mason McTavish and Ryan Strome. The second line is Benoit Olivier centering Vasily Ponomarov and Troy Terry. The third line is Ryan Suzuki centering Isaac Ludestrom and Frederick Gaudreau. Fourth line is Sam Carrick centering Ross Johnson and Max Jones. First D pair is Cam Fowler and Gustav Lindstrom. Second D pair is Pavel Mintyukov and Radko Gudas. Third D pair is Urho Vakanainen and Jacob Lacombe. Goalies are Lucas Dostal and Antti Ranta. On LTIR are Trevor Zegras and Alex Killorn. Listen to Hockey Wiz Talks podcast on Podbean and Spotify. Check out my travel channel at youtube.com/@HockeyWizTravels. The Anaheim Ducks are expected to be a very busy team during the trade deadline, and you can expect them to trade away almost half their team. In my next podcast, I'll be featuring the San Jose Sharks and potential sellers.